there was every reason for them to expect their attendance. Any of y'all ever gotten a card, save the date? Just say yes. You got an invitation, you got a card that says save the date for an event. So these people got to save the date. They knew the day, but they didn't know exactly the time because the host would need to notify them because they were having to prepare these things. And they were the pre-invited guests. And what Jesus was referring to here is Israel. That Israel were the pre-invited guests because they had all the Old Testament prophets, which were pointing Israel to the Messiah who was coming. And so, this banquet, and many were invited. And he said, at the time of the banquet, he sent his slave, his servants, to tell those who were invited, come, because everything is now ready. Now, you had to get all the things prepared. Remember, there's no refrigeration back then. So they had to make sure it was all ready to go. And, sometimes these banquets could last a day or two. And so the host would send his servants out to notify the guests, all right, it's time. You've agreed to come. Come on. It's time to come. Everything is ready to go. Pam and I, we had the privilege, a friend of ours who owns a large business in Tanzania. He has 2 daughters, got married. Now, in their culture, the wedding is spread out. There's steps that you have to take. And so one of the daughters had finished her steps, so to speak, in the process. And so she was fully married. And the other daughter was kind of in the middle toward the end. And so they had these receptions, separate receptions, one for each daughter. And so we were invited. I was just in his place of business one day, and he goes, oh, my wife has, wait a minute, my wife asked me to give you this. And he handed me these 2 items, a pouch and a beaded box. Okay, thank you. And in those items were invitations to these 2 receptions, one for each daughter. I got home to show Pam, and we were just shaking our heads going, whoa, wow. We were friends, we took volunteers there, anyway. So we went to the first one, and it was for the daughter who was still in process. And we were there, as Pam said, Pam and I and 1,000 of their closest friends. That's about how many people were there. It was outside, tables, buffet, everything. But we showed up. We got an invite, and we did show up. And so we got to experience that. And what was neat is the people who invited us, they kept coming around they sat us at a table, and they sat other people at a table that they figured would talk to us. So anyway, they kept coming around. How is everything? You got enough food? You got this. Yeah, oh yes, this, yes, thank you. And Pam told the wife, she said, it's tough when the mother of the bride is as beautiful as the bride, and she was. Anyway, went to that one. Then the next week and a half, the other banquet was set. And so we went to that. Boy, it was totally different there. Everything was said and done. We're walking in to music, Kiss the Girl from The Little Mermaid. We're going, oh, what in the world is going on here? This is interesting. Anyway, we went to that one also. And it was a different, again, I think it was Pam and I and a different set of 1,000 of their closest friends. Because this guy has a big business. Anyway, so we went. They wanted us to come. They invited us to come, and we went. And so we didn't, we weren't disappointed at all. But we give them the honor of showing up. And so, at the time of the banquet, all right, it's time to come. Here we go. He said, but without exception, these are the people who were invited. Without exception, what happened? They all started giving excuses why they couldn't come. Now, the first one said, I bought a field, and I must go out and see it. Now, who in the world buys a piece of land without looking at it? This is what the guy was saying. I bought this land. I need to go check it out. If you're going to buy some land, you better go look at it. You better go walk the property. And I advise you to go after a heavy rain to make sure it's not flood stage property, where it's flooded. And so I remember when we bought our house where we're living now, we had the home inspection before we finalized everything. And 2 days before the home inspection, we got like 4 or 5 inches of rain in Santee. And we said, well, it's probably a good time to inspect, especially underneath the house now. See what's under there. And the guy inspected and did his whole thing. He came out from underneath our house brushing dust off of him. He said, well, one thing about it. He said, that's dry under that house. He said, we've had all this rain. So these guys bought property. Now I need to go look at it. That's not a good thing. You need to go inspect that property. But what an excuse. I've already bought it. And besides, if the purchase was finalized, because during this time, this was a long process. You just didn't walk up, hand them the money, and say, okay, we got it. And so, they already purchased it. And besides, bankers are usually in the evening, so he couldn't really look at the land that well. But he said, I've already bought it, and if he's already bought it, the land ain't going nowhere. And so he can go see it the next day. But that was his excuse. So he said, all right. Another one said, I bought 5 yoke of oxen, and I'm going to try them out. I ask you to excuse me. Really? You bought 5 yoke of oxen and you didn't check them out before you bought them. How many of y'all have done this or watched on TV? Somebody buys a horse and they go and check the teeth on the horse. Yeah. All right, let's see how old this horse really is. To see how, what the condition of this animal is in. This guy said, I've already bought these 5 yoke of oxen, that's 10 oxen. And he's saying now, well, I need to take them for a spin around the field just to see how they are. Well, again, bankers are using the evening and when to give him time to do that. How many of y'all, I remember this, talking about buying a car. Come in for a test drive. Y'all remember that? Come in for a test drive today. You need to drive it. Because then they wouldn't let you go, right? Once you test drove, oh, you just want to buy this car, right? You just want to buy it. And so, he's saying, I need to go test drive these oxen. That's not a good excuse. He wasn't a very wise person. And so, here we go. That's his excuse. I bought some land, need to go see it. I bought some oxen, need to go try them out. And another one said, I just got married. Therefore, I'm unable to come. Now, in that culture, when you get married, you are excused from extensive business travel and military service for 1 year. You don't have to do anything. But basically, you and your wife. That's it. You're establishing a marriage. And then weddings, he said we just got married. Weddings were a long and elaborate process, just like what I was telling you. And so if they were invited and knew that they were getting married, they could have just said, no, thank you. We're getting married, so thank you for the invitation, but we can't come to the banquet. And basically, talking about this banquet, only Jewish men usually were allowed to go to these banquets. And the host didn't expect the wife to come. So what was this guy doing? He was using his wife as an excuse. He said, I just got married and I can't come. Y'all ever been used for an excuse? How many of you told your kids, use me as an excuse? Have y'all done that? We did that with our kids. We told them, you find yourself in a situation, you don't want to do it, or there's something going on, you just say, my dad said, my mom said, I can't go, I can't do that. Yeah, you know my dad. Yeah, he said I can't go. And they won't let me do anything. But inside they're going, thank you for that excuse. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Mom. And so we encouraged our kids to do that. And they did on occasion do that. Now this guy's using his wife as an excuse. I just got married. I can't come. So, what happened? Now, Billy Sunday. Ever heard of him before? Billy Sunday? He was a preacher back in the 20th century. And he said his definition of an excuse. Y'all heard this before? He said an excuse is the skin of a reason stuffed with a lie. An excuse is the skin of a reason stuffed with a lie. That's pretty hard. But and then many people who are good at excuses are usually not good at anything. You have people excuse themselves and everything, they're usually not good at anything. So, the servant came back and reported these things to his master. He's probably thinking, please do not shoot the messenger. He says, I'm just bringing the responses back to you. This is what's going on. Then in anger, the master of the house told his slave, go out quickly. Go into the streets Go into the alleys of the city and bring in the people who are there. The poor, the maimed, the blind, the lame, the crippled. Bring them in. Bring them here. He was mad. Because these people who said they would come were not coming. And you have prepared all of these things. Again, no refrigeration, no way to store this stuff. All this food was ready. So he said, go. Go and bring all of these people in. And basically the religious people condemned Jesus. These same people that he told to bring his servants in, the servants to bring in. These same people Jesus hung around with, and the religious people condemned Jesus. Said, you hang around with all these people, these scum, so to speak. Why do you do that? But you know what? The master said, you tell those people, tell them come as they are. Come as they are. And he said, the blind couldn't see any land. So they didn't have that excuse. The poor couldn't buy any oxen, so they didn't have that excuse. So the others usually were not given in marriage, so they didn't have that excuse. So these people that came in, the crowd, they were lonely, they were hungry, they were more than glad to accept this invitation. And here they came. And basically it was showing the rich that there were people who would gladly accept this invitation. So he said, all right. So they did that. Brought them all in. They're getting ready. Man, these guys are probably, their eyes are probably so, y'all been somewhere your eyes got that big around and said, whoa, look at all this food. Man, this is more than I can imagine. And so these guys are sitting down. And so the slave came, Master, what you ordered has been done. We've gone to these places and brought them all in. Here they are. And he said, but you know what? We still got some room. We still got room. The place isn't filled up. So what are we going to do? He said, basically, we got all we can get locally. But what are we going to do now? Somebody wrote, said, God is more willing to save sinners than sinners are to be saved. God is more willing to save sinners than sinners are to be saved. So basically, the servant is saying, what now? What do we do? Then, the master said, he told him, go out into the highways, the lanes, the hedges, make them, compel them to come in, so that my house may be filled. Broaden your area of invite. Go out to the highways, the hedges, all these places out there. I want a full house. I want everybody I can get into this house for this banquet. But you don't force them to come, but it's by earnest persuasion. Why don't you come? Hey, can you come? Please, can you come? Look, it's free, it's done, it's ready. Would you like to come? Would you like to get basically a free meal? How many of y'all turn down free meals? Usually not. So, these guys are getting free now. And remember, these people are out, tough life. And so they're saying, man, we can get this. Okay, let's do it. And so, basically, the Gentile regions, the Jews didn't like to associate with the Gentiles. And these offended the Jews. They didn't like the Gentiles. But the thing was, the Jews thought they would be exclusively at this banquet. But they were finding out that now the Gentiles are invited. And in a few short years from this time, basically the religious leaders rejected Jesus Christ as the Messiah. And they spoke for the nation. They said, nope, we don't believe you're the Messiah. Then the invitation went out. All right, if you don't want to accept Jesus as Messiah, the invitation went out. In Acts chapter 8, the Samaritans, hey, we want to bring you the gospel. And then in Acts chapter 10, Peter with Cornelius, the Gentiles were bringing the gospel to you. These people turned it down. And then Jesus said, for I tell you, not one of those men who were invited will enjoy my banquet. Now maybe these people who made the excuses were thinking, well, he'll have another party, he'll have another banquet, I'll come another time, and, I'll show up. But the thing was, these people, now, can you imagine, now, if y'all had a party and nobody came, and you knew the invitations, and you started putting that list, not going to invite them no more. Not going to invite them no more. Nope, they off the list. They off the list. No, I'm not. I might invite that one again. This one, doop. And so, what was happening here, Jesus was saying with this story, that these people who were invited, there was no second invitation. There was no, well, I changed my mind. No, there was no second chance for these people. The door's been closed. You can't get in. They were invited, but they turned it down. Now, basically, what happened, the nation rejected Jesus as Messiah. Not all the Jews did, but again, the Pharisees, Sadducees, they were the spokesmen for the nations, the high priests. And they said, we reject you as Messiah, you're not the Messiah. But there were others who said, no, you are the Messiah. And the thing was, this was divine judgment that was coming. It happened in 70 AD when the Romans, under General Titus, they came into Jerusalem. They basically built ramparts and wooden scaffolds around the temple, and they set them on fire. And the heat, they said, some people reported the heat was so intense that the rocks were bursting, breaking, cracking. And so they went in after that, and all the things that were gold inside, the gold melted, and they started tearing the stones apart so they could get the gold that had melted and gone into the cracks. And so, probably many of these people that had rejected Jesus Christ as Messiah probably were killed during this time. Judgment on them. Now, Jesus challenged the excuses of those whose commitments were weak. He said, that's a weak thing. No, no, no. And basically, God, you have to be aware of God. He's given these invitations. But there are people, Jews and Gentiles alike. Basically, they're self-sufficient. They're fulfilling their own life programs, and they spurn his invitation. I don't care. You know, yeah, you're inviting me, but no thanks, no thanks. And basically, they're missing out. Because the message today, just like it was then, come. Everything's ready. Jesus died. He made everything possible for us to go to heaven. He's done it all. All he does is invite, come on, it's all ready, come. But the problem is there's people who, they say no. The future, with Jesus, the future is determined by a present response. The rich excluded themselves. After they made these excuses, they excluded themselves. And the thing is, you don't want to exclude yourself, because Jesus gives you the opportunity to follow him, to love him, and to serve him. Are you taking it? Now, I know in the Bible, back in Genesis, there was somebody who gave an invitation, and no one took him up on it. That man's name was Noah. For 120 years, come on, judgment's coming, come on. Look, we're building this big boat. Come on, there's room, get on, come on. And how many people ended up getting on that boat? How many? 8. Say it. 8. Say it again. 8. 8 people. 8 people. Noah, his wife, his 3 sons, and their wives. That's it. 8 people from the whole world. 8 people were saved. So God's extending that invitation today to all of us. I found this other story about a party, and I thought this was an interesting story. A guy who was in college, he threw a party exclusively for people that he didn't like. He really did this. He said, I called up 10 people and told them point blank that I was having a party for only those people I didn't like, and they were invited. I mean, this is a true story. Can you imagine getting a call like that? I don't like you, but I'm inviting you to a party I'm having. He said it was his humorous way of extending an olive branch. Most of the people laughed. Those who didn't were quite intrigued, for they didn't care for me either. So here we go. That Friday night, he decorated his house in gray party accessories. Gray balloons were floating at the ceiling, draped with black streamers. Black and gray, twisted and tacky like a dreary children's party. Spent all afternoon preparing finger foods. He found some old bouquets of daisies and plucked out most of the petals and put them in bud vases, and they scattered them all over the apartment. So everything looked very sad. It was a funny touch given to the theme of that party. He said, my friends helped me decorate but didn't understand why they couldn't stay for the party. These were the friends I liked. And they couldn't stay. So when time came for the party, I wasn't sure if anybody would come, but surprisingly, every single person I invited came to the party. Perhaps they were curious to see where it was going. Maybe they simply wanted to share an evening in the company of like-minded people. Those who shared the opinion that I was on their least favorite person list. Can you just imagine walking into a party like this? So, at first there was tension. He said, but as the night went on, people started to loosen up. I found myself in deep conversation with people I had previously gone out of my way to avoid. Also, and just as surprisingly, I found myself enjoying my guests' company. From that night onward, there wasn't anybody in that room I wasn't on speaking terms with. We had set aside our differences, were cool with each other after that. Over the years, I even became close with a few of them. I found myself hanging out with them exclusively as friends. One of the party guests became such a good friend. He said when I relocated out of town, she drove 6 hours, braving the city's rush hour, to surprise me as I performed in a play. I saw her smiling face in the front row when the lights came up, and we had dinner together after the show. The party for people I didn't like helped mend fences and open a dialogue with people who had previously made my life miserable, since those were either peers I had to work with or who shared the same circle of friends with me. I don't think the party would have worked if I hadn't been tactless and told them up front why they had been invited. Had I not included them in the joke, they may have become suspicious as to why they were being invited to a party with a host that didn't get along with and simply avoided them altogether. All right, there's an idea for a party for y'all. We read in Romans chapter 5, verse 10. For if while we were enemies with God. We're enemies because we're all sinners. We're enemies with God. For if while we were enemies, we could say God didn't like us because we're enemies. We were reconciled, brought back to a point, reconciled to God through the death of His Son, Jesus Christ. Then how much more, having been reconciled, will we be saved by His life? And that's exactly what God did on the cross. He basically gave an invite for people He didn't like because they're all sinners. And He said, why don't you come? You can be reconciled, brought back to a right position with me through my Son, Jesus Christ, and what He did on the cross. Let's bow our heads, please. Where are you with Jesus Christ? Yes, Jesus, I know You as my Savior. I've asked You to forgive me of my sins. I'm trusting You alone. I've done that. I've even been baptized. I'm trusting You today. Are you there? That's good. Are you following Jesus as you should, since you've made this commitment, this decision? And then maybe some of you, I haven't made that decision yet. I'm not really following Jesus Christ. I'm still on the fence. I don't know about that. I still got my life to live. I want to do things the way I want to do. And Jesus still says to you, come. Come. That's all I want you to do is come. You can come to Him today. Doesn't take much. He's done it all. You just say, hey, Jesus, I've heard about You. I know what You did. I heard about the cross and the sacrifice You made. You took my punishment. You took the penalty for my sin. You took the punishment. You were buried. You rose. You're alive today. You said, if I come to You, I come to You and trust You completely, You'll forgive me. And I'm asking for forgiveness for my sins. And I want You to be my Savior. That's all you have to do. Some say easy believism, but that's just a start. And that puts you on a right pathway as you follow Jesus Christ and serve Him the rest of your life. Because, folks, whether you believe it or not, whether you want to admit it or not, Jesus Christ is coming back one day. And today, He's much closer than He was to coming back than yesterday. And He is coming back. He is. You don't want to be caught unawares and surprised. You want to be ready. I'm going to be standing by this table where these flowers are. If you'd like to come forward, you want to pray, you want to talk to me, you want to talk to me after church, that's great. Or you deal with God right there where you're sitting. You deal with Him and say, all right, Lord, we need to have a good talk here. And we're listening and talking. So you do what you need to do today as our instrumentalist play. Just one verse. All right, thank you for being here today. We're having breakfast tomorrow at Max at 8:30. If you'd like to come to that. And then the ladies, you are meeting tonight at 6 o'clock. Making some more plans for things. Don't forget about cards for Carolyn Hutto, Matthew Chase. We're going to pray for him. We'll be talking about some other things in the coming weeks about helping him. And let's see, what else? Oh, Melody has some hand sanitizer, right? And she needs some help getting that out. She brought it here so that we can use it, distribute it to different people in different places. So it's in her car, and she would need some help bringing that in. You can just bring it here into the church, right here. So if somebody could just go help her, she put it in her trunk, right?
I didn't. One of the guys did.
All right, one of the guys did, but so she needs one of the guys and several guys to help her get the stuff out of the trunk and get it in here. So thank you for bringing that so that we can distribute that. So if you please stand. And Mike Brooks, please, sir, if you would close us in prayer.
Dear Heavenly Father, I'm grateful to be here, worship you, and we open our minds and hearts to the Lord and let you in. Not only us, but people who are there. We ask that you be with our extended church family, fellow share love, and after you, as they face illnesses and shortcomings